So it sounds like we got a pretty good feedback on the first couple. So that's a good thing.
I think we did all right.
Yeah, it's for a couple rednecks out here.
CZ Media.
Yeah, for a couple rednecks out here in rural Indiana.
Yeah,
we're getting the hang of it.
Right.
Which is exciting. So, with that being said, welcome back, guys. What is today? It is post 4th of July weekend.
Good time.
Great time. What did you do?
We went to Jada's parents.
I'm going to turn my mic up a little bit.
Always have just both sides of the family over this year, just due to current, situation, circumstances. We only ended up having one side out, but yeah, we played around the pool, just grill out, and it was a good time. It's good to catch up with everyone.
Yeah, that's good. Similar for us. I mean, we decided we were going to get away.
I forgot to ask.
College
How
buddy.
was it?
It was great. It was fun. I had plenty of fun, enough to last me for a while. Mm-hmm. Playing around in the pond and the tent. I will say, 90 degrees is hot, sleeping in a tent.
Yeah. Did you stay in the tent the whole night?
It did.
Nice.
It did.
Did your kids stay in the tent the whole night?
It was a very interesting thing. Yeah. So my son, we didn't even try with him. He went in the cabin and was sleeping. I tried to take him in to sleep with me first, and that was a bad problem when he woke up and realized that I was not mom.
Right.
So I ended up having to actually walk with him out to the tent at 12:30 in the morning to swap out my wife.
Yeah.
And of course my daughter, she was out.
Yeah.
And then from there I went out and slept and didn't sleep too bad. Coyotes were going crazy, so they were circling around. But anyways, it was fun. I enjoyed it. It was great. Now it's back on the grind.
Right.
So I think a lot of people are feeling that, feeling the weekend still and kind of hesitant on getting back into the grind. But
Monday morning,
quicker you do it, the better.
Individuals were struggling a little bit. Yeah,
that's expected. Post holiday, any holiday really.
Yeah.
But with that being said, we are continuing our trek here on bringing up and creating a little bit of awareness on subjects that people don't necessarily think about when it comes to health and fitness, or they are the things that are in fact total and utter BS that you shouldn't waste your time with. Or honestly, we're just changing your perspective. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you're listening to this, once again, the whole premise of this podcast is that we want to help you navigate these things. Where do you start? If you started and you've been doing this for a while, where can you go? Okay, how can you make the next best improvement around, navigating this space?
Right.
Because it's challenging. Right.
Well, and I think especially with this topic, when we get into it, so many individuals, like we alluded to in the very first podcast. Well, what is the quickest thing I can do? What's the magic pill? What's the silver bullet?
Yeah.
And a lot of times we're never even going to reference those things because it's not what we believe in.
No.
If you want help, stay tuned and hear what we have to say.
Yeah, and this specific topic that we're going to get on is very near and dear to us, because I dare say it's one of the things that differentiates our teaching method to our clientele. This holds a very heavy weight in our methodology. I don't see this elsewhere. I don't see it in any other training capacity or any other program or any other system, or have at least anybody talking about it on a daily basis.
Right.
Okay. So, and also keep in mind, and this is one of the things that you and I talked about the other day as far as possible topics, there are, as silly as it sounds, there are people who believe that they should be in shape before they go to the gym, right?
Yeah.
And you made the joke that, if everybody who signed up at our facility was in shape, we wouldn't have a gym.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so we understand that. If there's one thing that you could do, let's say before you started, it's going to be surrounding this topic we're going to bring up. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. Hands down.
Hands down. Okay. So here we go into topic for today. I see this a lot floating around social media. Okay. Last week we talked about what was the hardest thing in health and fitness. Okay. Creating consistency. If you haven't listened to that, by all means go back and listen to that, because it's definitely good for your mental clarity and approach to diving into this fitness space. But overseeing and hearing people, especially as they put emphasis on food. Don't get me wrong. Like, you have to have your food in check for you to see any kind of continual progress or results and things like that.
Yeah.
If you don't, like, it's the catch-all for everything.
Well, and people don't give it that weight though.
No.
You know, it's like any goal that I have,
I think
it relates to the food consumed.
Yeah. I think some do.
Yeah.
But I don't think they do enough.
Right.
Okay, so here is the myth that I have heard, and we were taught. You know, I think just anybody who is ever going through certifications to become a trainer or a coach or whatever, they always said, you, as my client, you are what you eat, right?
Right.
You've heard that before.
Yeah.
And we probably guiltily said that.
I know that I used to say it.
Look, you are what you eat.
Yeah.
You eat like crap, you are crap. You eat good, you are good. I want to change that. Because I don't believe it's accurate anymore. You are not what you eat, you are what you absorb.
For sure.
Okay? And here's where the topic goes today as far as digestive health.
Yeah.
Okay? Who, and think of anybody out here, has ever had a coach or a trainer or somebody you worked with specifically who's ever said, hey, how's your gut? Who honestly, do you think there's anybody out there besides our members that might be listening to this?
No one has ever. Well, again, this kind of goes back to my background with hormone coaching, but I know, or now know, how much of a weight that this holds, because part of what we do, like with our detective process, let's say I get like your lab results back, and all of a sudden your labs show no imbalance with your hormones whatsoever. Okay,
That'd be nice.
But you still have a lot of the symptoms of, there being some potential imbalance or dysfunction. Now we look at the gut, because it's probably leading somewhere as far as increasing cortisol. Could be a gut, like parasite, could be a bug, whatever. So I knew how much weight that had if it's going to show the same kind of issues as an individual with, the hormone function being completely off the charts.
For sure.
Yet the hormones are completely fine.
Yeah.
Do many coaches ask this question? They should.
They should, but not too many. I mean, I can for sure say safely that I took no schooling that was geared towards understanding digestive function and how it can create, imbalances or issues with, for example, immune response or overactive immune response, how it can actually be tied into certain autoimmune disorders, or how it really is the ultimate culprit of chronic inflammation. A lot of those things that we don't necessarily think of, but now more and more research is coming out where they're starting to understand that the gut has the biggest connection with the brain as far as a reactive strike to foreign pathogens. Like, your gut is what is responsible for that. And we do so much as a society now to damage our gut that we've actually damaged our ability to heal, right? And so what a lot of people don't just understand is because it's not brought up in common knowledge is like, hey, you're somebody who is so chronically stressed because you try to work out 7 days a week and you're eating a severe caloric restrictive diet. You're like, I'm going to sit here and smell these tea leaves and suck on a lemon and I'm going to lose weight, right? But it's not going to work because your body is so chronically stressed, and this chronic stress is causing, adverse effects with your gut's ability to communicate with the brain and say, hey, shut this off. We need to heal. It can all be tied back into that.
For sure. Well, the body, it's a system of systems. Our individuals in here, they hear us say that all the time. And when the gut, when all of your organs really, like when they have to down-regulate because you are not recovering, you're going to get into a pretty bad way pretty quickly. Yeah,
and the bad way shows itself in different forms.
Yeah.
And that's the only unfortunate thing about this entire thing is that no two situations are alike. You think about it, you probably know somebody that can eat chicken nuggets and french fries and they have a six-pack.
That's my brother.
Exactly. Okay, yeah, Aaron. So, you probably can't do that. You know what I mean?
No.
So it's like, it's those things that,
I tried.
While I would give it one hell of an effort. It's that thing, so where like some people, your version of being chronically stressed or having chronic inflammation might show differently than somebody else. Somebody, it might be as simple as, constantly having bloating or indigestion or something like that. Some people, it might be joint pain. You know what I mean? But they're all can be tied back to an excitement, is that the better word to use, of your inflammatory response.
Yeah.
And it can be tied back into the health of your gut, right? So I guess just for background, and this is probably something that we should just follow up one day on a part 2 with the gut, as far as getting more specific into, or maybe it'd be better to do on a 38 special, where we actually get
function.
We get into the function of it, where we can apply, or we can kind of talk about the application we went through with some of our clients.
Sure.
But basically, the digestive issues that we see based on our society and our dietary intake right now, being highly processed foods, high energy sources, sugar, stuff like that, and being very low in plant fibers and good lean quality protein, like we have chronic inflammation coming from food, okay? And it can be tied into, the most common one would be type 2 diabetes, right? Very inflammation ridden. You can get into asthma, some arthritises. Leaky gut is actually a catch-all for inflammation. Same with fibromyalgia. A lot of these different things can all be tied back to inflammation, okay? And not everybody wants to hear that.
Yeah. We kind of have to make a firm stand here. That's what this podcast is all about. And just say, look, if you do certain things, if you make specific decisions, you have to live with the potential consequences that are going to come along with that. And some individuals don't want to hear that, well, because I've consumed food this way for the last 10 or 15 years, you're telling me I have this now? I don't know, but there's probably a pretty strong correlation with that.
Yeah, and let's just go ahead and put this out in concrete real quick. We're not doctors. No. We are not prescribing anything, and we're not trying to heal you through means that are not okay with, your medical professional. However, I'm giving you questions to ask that person.
Yeah.
Like definitely. That is the best thing you could get from any of this information. Hey, these two dudes
what
said
we
this.
should do.
Yes. There's no person who's ever should be told something by a doctor that didn't have 5 follow-up questions with it.
Right.
The problem is you don't know the questions to ask. Here you go. Okay? So just know that now. I have many doctor friends. I went to school with many of them. They would honestly probably be relieved that you are not necessarily challenging their viewpoint, but you are seeking information to make things make sense for you.
Yeah.
Okay? Not just willingly putting on the cloak of a sheep, so that way you go and follow along with what is said by the quote-unquote system.
Yeah, the physicians we work with, they love that we educate our clients in the way that we do, and that those individuals can go in and ask specific questions. Right. Because they really do want to help out.
Well, here's the thing. Iron sharpens iron. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We both work together to sharpen each other.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like when I, send somebody to go, seek counsel or whatever, get a second opinion on something or whatnot, I was like, hey, walk in, these are the questions you're going to ask, and here's why. Okay, if this is the answer, here's your follow-up questions. And then on the flip side, when they come back, they say, hey, let's say it's a mechanical thing that we can actually do something on our end about. There's questions on their end as well.
Right.
And now, after a couple of interactions, all of a sudden, you have created this person that is very well aware of their situation, and they understand the path they should go on in order to help better that situation, obviously. So without getting into too big of a wormhole here, we are not doctors, okay? Not going to claim to be, not going to claim to cure you of anything you might have. I'm simply giving you a little bit of information so that way you can ask questions next time they possibly come up.
We load your gun so you can do what you want with it.
Yeah, so like you guys can, take the information, do what you will, and be, if anything, you're just learning a little bit, okay? So, couple things that cause chronic illness. Obviously, it's tied into the gut. We've talked about how inflammatory food can be a major culprit of that. Okay. Other things that can cause chronic inflammation would be like a failure of your body to treat an acute issue. Okay. Right. So an acute would be like an instant sprain your ankle. It's an acute issue. Yeah. If you're not able to rid the body of that inflammation after the healing process is done, you can develop chronic inflammation. I don't see that happening all the time for people. Mm-hmm. Like I see it being more associated with food, stress, sleep. poor gut flora.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lack of diversity in gut microbiome. Okay, so
all kinds of things are going to cause that.
oh man, so
I'm probably guilty of this too. Like if
I'm not
you
perfect
just
with
eat the same thing over and
Yes.
over and over, my type A OCD personality
Yep.
doesn't lend itself well to that right there.
Right. Perfect example. Know somebody who is in the bodybuilding realm. Chicken, rice, a vegetable choice.
Right.
That's it. As soon as they got off of their competition prep and went into eating, just healthy food, but regular food, had incredibly horrible reaction to specific foods because they went on I want to say it was like a 24-week prep. You know what I mean? And they went 3. How many months? 4 months? 6 months. That's 6 months only eating very specific food. So their body basically from an enzyme production was gearing for that specific food, and that's it. And then all of a sudden you throw them a curveball and the body just freaked out.
Right.
All right. And they had gut issues. They had really bad digestive function as far as normality was going. They couldn't sleep. They actually had skin irritations, I think. It was a very interesting situation, and basically they did a panel testing a lot of different, I guess, enzymes you produce. Can you actually test gut flora diversity?
You can see if an individual is lacking specific enzymes.
So basically they're like, I don't know what happened to all your stuff, but they're gone. And they tied it back to the diversity of the food that you're consuming was so one-sided that your body basically just didn't have those other things needed.
Well, and it's like we said, the first or second podcast, your body, again, it wants to establish and reach homeostasis. It wants to work with ease. So if you give it the same foods over and over and over, it's now found its state of ease. And also, Colton mentioned, and I don't want to forget this because it's a very important thing to understand, if you have skin issues, more than likely it's your gut.
I've got a perfect story to bring up when we get there in a second. And then the other thing that causes more chronic inflammation associated through the gut is going to be high stress. Being chronically stressed out. And a lot of people are like, hey, it's life. We're in COVID. We're having job issues, whatnot, high stress. That's fine. You can say that, but it's slowly killing you.
You can't live there forever.
No, you can't. Your body has this ability to go into its fight or flight mode, but it should not live there.
Right.
You cannot live there. Literally the only reason why I always bring this up, that you don't die when you see a snake, is because of cortisol and your body's ability to tap into that fight or flight stimulus. Right. Okay? That regulates your heart rate. Yeah, that regulates your heart rate. That basically prevents you from passing out.
Yeah.
Okay? But if you live there, okay, it's just like anything. If you spend more time there, your body's going to get so used to it.
Yeah.
But it's causing complications in other areas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and it's like we've listened to these guys, different podcasts, talking about whether it be Marine or SEAL training or whatever. There's a very good reason why those guys have to go through what they go through, so they adapt for that specific thing.
There's so much different psychological, hands-on training. How
you can trick your body to be more efficient. I'm not saying it's healthy, though.
No, there's nobody on there that's going to tell you that everything they went through to be the best of the best, as far as being a Marine is going to say, is the healthiest man to do that. Okay, and I'm sure so I'm not going to argue with them either. But there are just different things that you can think about when you talk about health and you talk about chronic stress. And so basically, those are the main things that we know of. Okay, mind you that.
Do we want to bring up antibiotics?
Oh, God, another wormhole. So here's the thing. There's still a lot of research that is coming out on the gut flora because it is so vast, and we just don't know everything about it. All we do know is what we do know about it is very good.
Yeah.
And we should spend a lot of time focusing on it.
Definitely.
And so that's what we started doing. Okay, one of the things that we do here at our facility is specifically educate these simple things with our members to say, hey, I'm going to better your gut so that way you start to change physiologically and the physical will follow. Just like we mentioned last time, the physical follows the physiological. And a lot of it starts with the gut.
Yeah. And again, we're not communicating antibiotics are bad, but if you have the mindset that every time I get a cut or if this occurs, well, I now need a round of, more than likely your flora is very disrupted.
It's I guess very hard for me to bring up a lot of personal stories of people that I know without violating their own personal rights and privacy and whatnot. But I know of people who live on antibiotics. who essentially do so for the quote-unquote protecting of their immune response system, whatever, okay? When in reality, they are chronically the person that I know of that gets sick the most, or who has joint pain the most, or has skin irritations the most, always has acne, those different things. And like, it's like your gut literally is dependent on what you are giving it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, there's plenty of reason to be on an antibiotic if something is, needed.
Yeah. But
like you said, like, if it's a little thing, like, don't freak out, consume those things, which we'll talk about in a second, that are meant to provide an ability for your biodiversity to increase.
Right.
Okay. Because this is bacteria. Yeah. We're talking bacteria here in your body. Okay. And there's billions of different bacteria that's in your body that have a specific function. But if you have only a very small select few of them, only those can essentially work for a specific pathogen coming into your body. Yeah. I think I'm using my wording right, so hopefully I don't get called out on that. But anywho, so basically having a biodiversity is a big reason of promoting gut flora health.
Yeah. So I think we can agree there are two different individuals. There are those who acknowledge that they might have an unhealthy gut or excessive amount of inflammation, and they might just want to take things to suppress or to deal with symptoms.
Sure.
Or there are those who understand, acknowledge those things again, and they're like, well, there's something that I can do about it.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, and that's definitely a case. The big thing is just understanding that there is a possibility that what is happening with you, or a bit even better yet, what is not happening that we are expecting to happen could be led to us considering your gut being very poor.
Yeah.
Like, look, most of us have spent years in this processed food, absolute crap, high inflammatory diet to the point where we've destroyed our gut flora.
Yeah.
Okay, a lot of the curvature, the nooks and crannies where a lot of the food absorption happens in our digestive system, and basically
they're tight junctions is what it's called.
Yeah.
They're not tight anymore.
No. And we're eating all this good food, and we're like, I'm eating all the good food. Why aren't I seeing the problems? Well, it's because guess what? You're not what you eat. You are what you absorb.
Yeah.
And you're not absorbing. So now what do we do? Now you just got to look at it and say, well, how can I promote a better, environment for my microbiome to be in, so that way I can promote the absorption? Because here's the deal: when you get absorption, you have the opportunity to heal with nutrients the body needs, both macronutrients and micronutrients.
You said it. People, we all, ourselves as well, we have to understand that the body is capable of healing if you give it the things that will allow it to heal. So if we don't give it the resources in which it's able to heal, you're going to continue to have absorption issues.
Well, it's not going to heal.
Right.
So the body is really good at one thing. What is it?
Healing.
It's good at compensating.
Yeah.
Yeah, the body is good at compensating, but guess what happens when you can't compensate anymore? That's when you get disease. That's when you get illness.
For sure.
It's like a bicycle spoke, and one of those spokes is half an inch shorter than all the other ones. Guess what? That tire can still roll, but a couple of spokes surrounding the one that's broken are taking more impact over and over and over again until they themselves too will break down. That's where you have the onset of fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Okay, you have joint pain, you have sleep issues, you have insomnia in some cases, like you have digestive dysfunction, you have irregularities, you have skin issues, you have hair issues, you have eyesight, I think is another big one. Like, the list goes on and on and on.
But any symptom can be directly related to, all right, is your gut as healthy as it can be? Let's start there.
Yeah. Can it? Can we go and operate under the assumption that my gut is as healthy as it can be, or do we have to really step back and be like, okay, how can I essentially, I don't want to say diagnose myself, but how can I connect the dots to see, some of the things that I have happening as far as, signs and symptoms, and then also how can I look at the food and the quality of life that I live and associate that, hey, there's a direct correlation, or there could possibly be a strong correlation if it's not direct, right? So that'd be a good place to start.
Yeah.
So we're spending time here and we're covering general health, right? We're covering skin issues. We're covering we are covering sleep habits. We're covering just daily function.
Yeah.
But honestly, I see this as a problem even with athletes as well.
Yeah.
Don't you?
For sure. I wish that I knew the things as an athlete that I know now. I'm not saying I would have been any better on any field, or court, but I know that I would recover a whole heck of a lot better, and then probably increased my chance at better performing.
Yeah. But you think about it, any athlete that's out there, what are they trying to do? They're trying to be 1% better
right.
all the time.
Yeah.
Not one person ever approached me about taking care of my gut
yeah.
while I was playing college football
sure.
or baseball or any of those things. But I think it could have a huge reasoning for a lot of increased injuries. And I have no scientific data to specifically tie those things together, but it makes sense in my mind.
Yeah.
Okay, we get to the point where, the first thing that happens, acute injury wise. Okay, don't get me wrong, you gotta manage pain, but also promote healing, right? What's the first thing that happened when you sprain your ankle? You go dump it in a bucket of ice. Stay there.
Or someone tells you, unfortunately. Or somebody
tells you, yeah.
Take some Advil.
This is what I was told too. It's one of those things that's like, and Dr. Aaron Horschig had a great feed on his Instagram not too long ago, Squat University, if you've never followed him. He had a great feed about this, talking about inflammation is needed to heal.
Yeah.
And you're trying to stop inflammation for the effect of pain.
Right.
Which one are you trying to do? You trying to manage pain or are you trying to heal? Because people who are sitting there icing doesn't necessarily promote optimal recovery.
Yeah.
Okay, we're always told rest, ice, compression, elevation, right? Ugh.
It blunts the process.
Yeah, but you go and you tie that back even steps further into your gut health. Okay, you sprained your ankle and you're somebody who has horrible gut health. Did you have an overreaction?
Right.
As far as an overreaction to the inflammatory response?
Yeah.
Was it way too sensitive or heightened for what you really need? In which case, you maybe you do have to manage your inflammation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So these are just a little bit of hypothetical, but it makes sense in my mind, and I could see how it could be very applicable to many different athletes.
Yeah.
Okay, especially when you get into the recovery thing, because nobody wants to talk about that. My gosh, we could ramble on and on and on about.
Well, I think if you look at some of your elite athletes, at a professional level, and guys that have been able to play in their careers for the longest amount of time. Like a guy that pops in my mind is Ray Allen. Like that dude, just his physique over his entire NBA career. I'm like, man, he's like 110 years old. He's still out there just running around with these guys. But if you would dig in a little bit and understand, that guy was impeccable with what he would put into his body. And he wouldn't eat out at restaurants. If the team was going to go off the grid and eat other things, he's like, no,
that's not for me.
So he recovered, probably reduced inflammation, and more than likely had a healthy gut.
More than likely, yeah. So that's speculation, but you could tie in people who eat out constantly. You're usually looking at one, consuming food you don't know.
Yeah.
Specifically what it is. You're just going off of what they tell you it is.
Yeah.
I'm not saying every restaurant owner is somebody's going to con you by any means, but you guys get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's an excellent. I'm trying to think of somebody on the top of my head too. Nobody comes to mind that you can dive into like that. But I'm glad there is somebody. Okay, so that's good. So the gut itself and its ability to absorb macro and micronutrients, that's what we need the gut to do. Everybody thinks that it digests food. Well, okay, but what happens then?
Yeah.
You have all of these, things that need to be used, or what? They just pass through and go in the toilet? Because probably what happens.
Well, or, the digestive system, it allows us to secrete waste, but if we can't do that as optimally as we should, where does that waste go?
It stays in the body.
Right.
Yeah.
More inflammation.
Toxicity.
Yeah.
So then you go overly toxic, and your body has problems basically handling that inflammation, those toxins. We've had quite a few people have to go through liver detoxes and some other things like that, just because toxicity wise.
Yeah.
And it's not something you would know unless you tested.
Yeah.
But it's holy crap! You're
Right.
a working chemical plant going on in here that your
Right.
body can't handle.
Well, and that's the thing. When people look at food, a lot of us, we just look at it like, all right, point A to toilet,
Right.
point B. Well, how does it get there?
Yeah.
There are things that have to go on internally. So we should hopefully be drawn to and want to consume things that are the most natural. Like I'm drinking some water right now, or eating real food because it's easy for the body to receive nutrients from those foods, and the waste isn't toxic.
As bad, for sure. So that's an excellent, area as well to dive into. But things like that come to mind, and I hinted on it a little bit earlier, I think. If I didn't, I must have messed up my notes. But like, I've seen people who come in who, you can tend to identify somebody with gut issues based on a couple obvious factors. If you're somebody who has excess body fat, there's a good chance that you have an insulin sensitivity issue or insulin resistant issue.
Yeah.
And you can tie those two things into gut health just as a strong correlation.
Right.
Not 100%, but it's usually a strong correlation.
Yeah.
And that's usually where I start with people. It is basically starting to heal the gut. I've seen people who went from 250, 300 pounds, and they're like, I'm going to start exercising. I'm going to do nothing but eat salads. And I'm going to do all this, and it's going to be great. But don't you dare take that packet of Splenda away from my coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
And
they're going to be weak as a chipmunk.
and nothing happened.
Yeah.
Okay. One, the salad they're consuming, what real nutrients were in there? There were some micronutrients in the form of vitamins and minerals, but there were no macronutrient densities. There was no energy. There was no fat content. There was no rehabilitation possible with the lack of carbohydrates. And they had their coffee being a diuretic. Okay. Doesn't necessarily help for the water that you need.
Right.
But also, one of the number one things that we know to be damaging to the gut flora are some things like artificial sweeteners. Okay. And so
do some research.
Yeah. And so basically you're like, okay, this one little thing that you are doing and that you have done for every day for the past 20 years could be the thing that is really holding your body back from absorbing anything. So then you take that exact same person and you say, look, I don't care what you have to do, get rid of the Splenda packets. I don't care initially if you have to go chug almond milk or whatever you need to do to kind of get your, caffeine buzz. I don't care if you grind up coffee beans and throw it in there with it, but get rid of the Splenda packets.
Yeah.
We change your food into consuming things that are macronutrient dense, okay? Getting away from just eating a salad because culturally we think that's what's going to make us lean.
Real quick on the salad thing.
No,
Sorry,
hold on a
man.
second. I'm not done. And then after that, your body starts to respond.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, your body can heal because it has the things needed for healing.
Sure.
And the gut flora is changing and you can absorb things. And all of a sudden, it's like, what the hell have I been doing the past 20 years?
Well, we make it so complex, and it doesn't have to be that way, but we just need a coach or someone that can provide the right insight. If you love salads, like that's cool, but like save yourself some time and probably the ability to get nutrients from that food. Throw it in a blender with a lot of other things, and you're going to be a lot better off. But anyway.
So people always joke about like eating celery being a negative calorie. Like you know the yeah. So basically, it takes more energy to digest celery than what the celery itself has as far as calories go. It's something called the thermic effect of feeding, and it's quite hilarious because those people that are eating the salads are like, oh, well, if I can obviously just eat this and gnaw on it, like I'll be less calories and I'll lose weight.
Yeah.
But tell me why that's not happening.
Right.
What is it? What's going on? How come you are eating 500 calories a day and you're not losing weight? Because I guarantee you if I put you on an island without food, you'd lose weight.
Yeah.
So what exactly is happening in here? It can go right into the tie-in with gut health, okay? It's not necessarily anything bad for gut health. Salads can probably help. A lot of the other crap that we like to put on salads probably doesn't help. you down your bottle of, French dressing on there or whatever.
Valley.
Yeah, man. So, like, those things are not conducive to promoting a healthy or diverse gut bacteria, okay? There's sugar. There's inflammation from that as well. There's artificial sweeteners more than likely. Like, a lot of that stuff has been tied in with the little research that we know to being very detrimental to the health of your gut flora. Right? But you look at the foods that you need in order to promote gut diversity, you're not far off. It's more of a manner in which you consume them, okay? Like the number one thing that comes to mind that people know to be really good for consuming good bacteria are any variation of fermented vegetables.
Yeah.
Right? So number one thing comes to your mind.
Right.
Sauerkraut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people don't like sauerkraut, right? I, for one, love it.
Yeah.
It gives me the little fuzzies on the inside that makes me feel good, like getting this gut health in one spoonful. I essentially started for a while, like consuming one spoonful of sauerkraut and a shot of lemon juice, like literally before every meal.
Right.
It was kind of funny because I was kind of setting my gut up for the ability to digest and absorb the nutrients that I need. And like I started sleeping better.
Yeah.
I have no, clinical evidence on this, but I'm telling you, it's one of those things that I started to associate. And so sauerkraut, you can ferment literally any vegetable in the world.
Yeah.
Okay. Just boil some water, vinegar. I don't even use sugar. People tell you to put sugar in it. Like I don't use that at all.
Yeah.
Use apple cider vinegar. It's very simple. And you cut your vegetables whatever you want. Like there's a jar in my fridge right now I think has green onions and matchstick carrots and radishes maybe.
Yeah.
Like
radishes are good.
Little snacks. Tell you some of the best fermented
little
vegetables.
Chips.
Best fermented vegetables I ever had was cherry tomatoes and garlic.
Yeah, I don't know. The garlic would be good. I'm not a tomato fan. Sorry, guys.
Okay, well then your gut is not as healthy as mine because tomatoes and the fibers of most vegetables, especially the ones like that.
What about sun-dried tomatoes?
Yes, maybe. But so that was the other thing. Besides fermented vegetables, is the fiber from most vegetables have that good ability because they sit and they ferment in your intestine. Okay, they don't actually go through your digestive tract. They sit there and they ferment. That's why it's good. That's why fiber is a good thing for you. So that's another one that you can consume to help better your chances of creating more diverse bacteria. Kombucha has taken the world by storm now.
Right.
I dare say half of the kombucha that is really popular right now is just loaded with sugar. Which, if you ask anybody who makes their own, they tell you that sugar is needed in order to feed the SCOBY, which has all the good bacteria in it. But there are some out there that are very interesting. So, do research about which one you want to consume.
I love the, like Trilogy. I want it to have a bite. Like it needs to be, kind of sour.
Yeah, for sure. Like that, you're learning more about the fermentation of it when you open it up. If it has that snap, pop, fizz to it, like it is developed its carbonation through the fermentation cycle, right?
Yeah.
That's correct.
And for individuals that have never had kombucha, I mean, it's a living food.
Yeah.
Like we need to get more of those things into our body on a regular basis.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. Living food.
Yeah.
Living food.
It's not dead.
It's not dead. You can go into the world of spices, right? Isn't that one of the most common ones we talk about?
Yeah.
What's the term for what they do to it? They gosh dang, it's not radiation.
No.
Basically, when most companies are harvesting spices, essentially you are killing the living nutrients that are in the spices itself. So you're essentially putting on a seasoning that will do nothing for you except for cause your body another thing that it has to waste. Right? All for the sake of just tasting good. There are plenty of different ones out there that are against this, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. I didn't think about covering it on this, but you said living food.
That's what podcasts are good for.
Yeah, and I remembered it. So that's definitely another thing.
Yeah.
Look at and look up what are good living foods that I can consume. Right. Most prebiotics and probiotics that I hear about, there are some good ones out there. It's quite an interesting thing because there's a lot of studies coming out. Like a lot of the probiotics are ahead of the science. I think. I think it's safe to say that with most of them, because like there are some that come out and like the strand of bacteria that are in these probiotics are like too weak for the body to do anything, so they essentially attack them and they're dead.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. It's like, well, you can sit here and pay $60 for this bottle for every month and really not see any change. So
if you don't have a healthy digestive system, that's one thing we talk about with supplements all the time. If your gut doesn't receive nutrients from the food, why are you taking supplements anyway?
No, another wormhole.
You're just wasting money.
Yeah. No, I have an excellent outline for a supplement.
It's a 9 millimeter.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously there's a lot of things that we focus on as far as improving your gut, and one can be easily consuming those foods. The other one's going to be exercise, and doing it consistently. Good Lord, and doing it consistently.
Yeah.
Because every time that you exercise, pending that you don't have a bunch of food in your stomach, your body has to start to prioritize where it sends its working energy, right? Your body will always choose its digestive system. If you try to work out with a lot of food in your system, you will not have as much energy as you thought you would to work out. Like,
digesting food is a very taxing thing on the body.
And your body needs a break from that.
Right.
And it needs a break from that, and that is good for your digestive system. So if you're working out and you haven't eaten anything within the last 3 to 4 hours, that's usually about how long it takes to complete a digestive system, depending on a lot of different variables, obviously. But usually I tell a lot of my nutrition clients, like, you should not eat within 3 to 4 hours. A heavy, dense meal with protein and fat. Like, you can consume a quick carbohydrate before and immediately after, but nothing else other than that. Your body now has a chance to limit its activity in the digestive system and send working energy and nutrients out to working muscles. But you have to demand those working nutrients every day. So, like, exercising has to be a staple. It's non-negotiable. You got to do something. You got to get your heart rate up, and you got to move. Every day.
Well, again, it is just why sleep is so important. That is when the body has the ability to recover. It's also when the digestive system hopefully gets a break, you know.
I eat all the way up until my eyes are closed. This is one
I usually do too, honestly.
This is one thing that James and I disagree with. But I do agree. Most people, they don't give their digestive system enough of a rest. Another obvious, very popular way these days as far as giving your digestive system a rest, fasting.
Right.
Everybody's going to get into the fasting realm.
We love fasting, but it is not something every single person should do, especially if you already have underlying health issues.
Correct. Yeah, no, I 100%. And we could do an entire podcast itself on fasting.
Yeah, and before everyone just jumps on it, women especially, I think women are better off doing one extended fast, maybe once a week, once a month, not trying the whole intermittent fasting thing. But anyway.
I would agree. Once again, we just keep bringing up rabbit holes. But I will say, fasting does have proven benefits to help along with, obviously, giving your digestive system a break, allowing it to recover, because it's a working thing. Just like your muscles, just like your skin, just like anything else, it needs time to recover. And most people will get that when they fast. Like, we fast unintentionally all the time. There's a reason it's called breakfast. Everybody know that? Breakfast, break, fast.
And it's not a time of day when you eat it. It's your first meal.
It's your first meal. Like, that's breakfast. You don't eat all day and you eat in the evening. Guess what? That's breakfast. You just broke your fast. Okay. And there's plenty of other benefits to fasting as well. But I do agree that the more that you do it in a consistent manner, the more you're promoting some of your gut health. We've seen a lot of different clients go through this on different sides of the fence. People who did really well with intermittent fasting. We've seen people who did really well with extended fasting. But it was all geared towards healing. Right? When do most people struggle the most throughout the week?
As far as recovery?
As far as, how about consistency with food?
A weekend.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
Friday evening until Monday morning.
Yes. You can promote those days that you're going to do, don't get me wrong, don't quote me and say this is healthy, but you can do yourself a service and get your gut in a better place to handle that crap you're about to throw on it. You know, if you implement fasting on the weekend. Okay. That's just one of those things you got to work with a coach and kind of understand how that applies to you and why. Okay, because it can be beneficial. But fasting is another one too. So already you have consuming good food, you have exercise, you have fasting that could be possibilities for increasing your ability to create more gut bacteria diversity. What else?
Well, there's if we would think about this culturally, this is something we educate on. You know, again with newer individuals. Most other cultures, the first thing that they consume at a meal is some type of like a brothy soup or anything that again will stir up enzyme production. What do we do in the United States?
Bread.
Well, or we have what I'm drinking right now, which is the best thing for you.
Give me the bread.
A bunch of ice water, you know, and that consuming ice water before a meal, that's just gonna stall the process. And then also the timing in which we do consume specific foods. You know, you mentioned that, but have something that will increase enzyme production, some type of broth, kombucha, whatever. And then when you consume the foods, you want to eat the things that are easier for the body to digest. So if you're going to have some type of fiber, you know, your vegetation, usually individuals struggle the most with protein.
They struggle chewing.
Well, they chew 3 times and swallow, and I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, I am
for
too.
sure. And again, you talked about the thermic effect of food. It really also, with that note, like it depends on a person's DNA, and you don't know unless you're tested. Some individuals can't eat that much protein, and they're like, well, this is what's going to help me lose weight. I'm like, look, just because it worked for the dude that just did the podcast a couple weeks ago, that doesn't mean it's the best thing for you, you know?
That's the most annoying
find
part
out.
of all this. Is you got to find out for yourself.
You know?
But yeah, you're totally right, because like most people, like Laura yells at me, she's like, you didn't hardly drink anything at dinner. Like I'll have a couple sips of water and that's it.
Yeah.
Like most people will program, hey, the first thing you do when you get up in the morning, go drink a bunch of water. What are they trying to do? They're trying to prevent you from making a bad decision eating. You know, and so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. That applies to you. As long as it makes sense, that's great. But if we're looking at specifically trying to increase your ability to diversify the bacteria in your gut, the last thing you want to do is be throwing a basic solution down there before you need acidic production to break down stuff.
Yeah.
So like chewing is the first step in the digestive process. Okay, you have salivary amylase, which is the enzyme produced in your saliva that breaks down food. But guess what? If you chew it 3 times and swallow, it didn't have a chance to do its job. All right, and there's a great chance that your body's going to struggle further digesting that, and you're not going to be able to break down the things that you need as far as micronutrients go. So slow down and chew your dang food.
It is more enjoyable.
I used to laugh. There was a guy that I used to work with that he'd take an hour to eat, and he'd just sit there and like that's how he would eat, but he would not stop. And I'm sitting there like I'm done eating in 10 minutes, and I'm like, you still eating over there? And he's like, yeah. But I'm sitting there like, oh, I feel like crap. You know what I mean? It's like the dude is very dedicated to slowing down the way he ate. So that's another good possibility for helping. Okay. And so what does all this mean? Honestly, it can mean everything if you just connect the dots into your specific situation. Okay, are you having trouble losing body fat? Okay, 1, look at the food that you consume. 2, ask yourself, is it meant to heal my gut? If it doesn't, that's where I would start. Like if I was working with you, that's where I'd start. Look at your production as far as, or your performance as far as working out goes. Okay, are you doing the things that you think you should be able to do? If not, look at the food. Is it the food that you're consuming meant to heal your gut? If it doesn't, that's where I'd start. Okay, it all ties in specifically. It's a very vague subject, but it can be very applicable to your unique situation as long as you look at it through the lens of healing. Right? And that's often the hardest part. Oh, I'm touching my mic. There we go. So that's the hardest part often when you're looking at the gut, is like, this has nothing to do with what the Instagram model told me I should be doing with my 300 glute bridges and my booty band walk, and I don't have a 6-pack like her. It's like, well, yeah. 1, my argument would be she's probably not healthy just because she has a 6-pack.
You said that, me too.
And 2, never mind. That's going to be way too long, and my camera battery's about to die.
There are, I want to mention just before we got to get off, there are a few things a person can take, and I'm not talking supplementation, but if you have been, let's say, diagnosed that you have leaky gut, or you've done enough research and you've diagnosed yourself with it, a few things that a person could, again, I don't want to say supplement, add into a shake or have on a regular basis, chia seeds, and let them sit overnight so they expand. Or even like taking aloe vera, like an actual like leaf
plant.
Score it and then scoop some of that into a whether you put it in a shake or whatever. But there are specific foods that do in fact promote healing. Internally without taking X, Y, or Z.
Goes back to the idea of living foods.
Right.
Like that's the biggest thing. All right, guys. I think we ought to wrap that one up. We went pretty good today. We'll retouch.
It's got a lot to share.
We'll retouch on gut health all the time, especially as we get into more of the specific, some of our clients, what they've gone through in their unique situations and how they overcame that. So I think this is one of those things that people, when they hear it, they're like, I don't understand how that works for me. But when you hear the person talk about how it was the difference in them losing 50 pounds and like 15% body fat, you're gonna be like, oh, right. Okay. Because that's what we're going to put the thumb on, because it made all the sense in the world. Body couldn't recover, couldn't heal. It was overactive in its inflammatory response.
Yeah.
So that was a good one. I like that.
Boom.
All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. By all means, please send us some feedback. Send us questions. Like, we got things
that'll help us out.
We got things we want to talk about, but if you got things you want to talk about, you want to discuss, by all means, send them our way. Comment on any of the posts that we have on our social media platform. We'd love to break things down. It'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, until next time, this is the Silver Bullet Podcast.